I don't know what time it was when I started the recording. That day, time had stopped working for me. It didn't matter anyway, because this recording wasn't meant for time. It was meant for remembering. My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm a sound technician. People don't know me, but they may have heard my work, because I remove things that aren't meant to be heard. Room tone. Ambient noise. I was alone in the studio. As always. I put on the headphones. The microphone was on. The recorder was powered up, but I wasn't recording anything. I was listening. The file had no name, no date, no duration. There was only one label. Final recording. I pressed play. The first 10 seconds were silent. Then I heard breathing. But it wasn't ordinary breathing. It was the kind of breath that waits. Familiar. The breathing continued. Slow. Deep. Patient. Then a voice spoke. If you're listening to this, it's not too late. I straightened in my chair. I recognized the voice, but I couldn't remember where I knew it from. The voice continued. This recording doesn't belong to you, but it will. I took off the headphones. The room was silent, but my ears still felt full. Listen again. I rewound the file. Same place. Same breath. Same voice. But this time, there was a small difference. Before the voice began the sentence, it whispered, Daniel. My heart started racing. That was my name. It wasn't in the file name. It wasn't on the computer. It wasn't written anywhere in the recording. But the voice knew. That was the real question. I stopped the playback. That's when I understood. This recording had been prepared. Not for everyone. For me. And worse. The recording wasn't finished yet. Because in the lower corner of the screen, a small message was blinking. Recording in progress. But I wasn't recording anything. I slipped a note into my pocket. I don't know why I did it. It felt like someone was about to take the memory back from me. Some fears don't come from logic. They come from reflex. The studio lights were on, but the room looked dark. Everything was in its place, yet it felt like nothing was staying where it belonged. I looked back at the computer screen. The file was still open. Final recording. But this time the duration had changed. A minute ago it read 02:14. Now it read 02:47. I hadn't touched anything. Rewind. I decided to listen from the beginning. I pressed play. Silence. Again. The first 10 seconds. But this time the silence wasn't empty. There was a very faint sound in the background. So faint that most people wouldn't notice it. But I did. Because I'd been removing that sound for years. It was room tone. The breath of a space. And this space wasn't my studio. A sound. Inside another sound. I tightened the headphones. As the volume rose, details emerged. A distant door creaking. A chair being pulled back. Then the tap of a pan against a desk. I recognized these sounds, because they were sounds from my studio. But there was out date. No time. When had this been recorded? Then the voice spoke again. Now listen carefully. The voice was calm. Clear. Certain. Like it didn't want me to panic. The first time, you chose not to remember. The second listen is always harder. My fingers trembled. Because that's when I realized. The recording wasn't telling me something. It was reminding me. The first crack. As the recording played, a small waveform appeared on the screen. But it didn't match the sound I was hearing. There was a second sound in the background. Breathing. Very close. But this time it wasn't coming from the headphones. It was coming from behind my neck. I didn't turn around. Because there are some legs. If you turn,
They haven't. The voice continued from the recording. Don't turn. I swallowed. Not yet. A reminder. The recording slowed down. The sound distorted. Sentences broke apart. This recording is not a warning. It is a silence. Then a single word. Remember. You know this. The recording didn't end. But the voice stopped. New text appeared on the screen. The computer hadn't typed it. Because the font was my handwriting. You will recognize the next sound. And immediately after. Because it is yours. The studio's soundproofing was flawless. Thick walls. Double doors. Not even the smallest vibration from outside could get in. But at that moment, something in the room shifted. There was no sound. But the air grew heavy. Like someone was about to speak. But the words hadn't reached their throat yet. Movement. I straightened in my chair. The headphones were on the table. The recorder was on. But this time it wasn't recording. The screen displayed only one line. Live input detected. There was no one else in the studio. I stood in front of the microphone. I inhaled. The waveform moved. That was normal. But I didn't exhale. The waveform moved. The sound of emptiness. I turned off the microphone. The waveform didn't stop. I put the headphones back on. This time the sound was clearer. Something was speaking very close to me. But there were no words. Only that familiar sound. Room tone. But this room wasn't the room I was in. There was something else in the background. A rhythm. Slow. Steady. After a moment I realized it wasn't a clock. It wasn't a machine. It was a heartbeat. First recognition. The heartbeat sped up. And then I knew it. I'd heard this heartbeat before. Through headphones. On a recording. Years ago. After an accident. In a hospital room. A memory. When I closed my eyes, the image came back. A white ceiling. Fluorescent lights. A blinking monitor. And a voice. The doctor's voice. There was a few seconds of silence. But the recording had continued. Back then I hadn't understood. What recording? Now I did. The voice spoke again. But this time it wasn't guiding me. It was accompanying me. That day, you chose not to hear. The heartbeat stopped. 1 second of absolute silence. Then the voice whispered. But the recording continued. There is someone in the room. The studio door was closed. But I felt someone behind me. My breathing quickened. The waveform on the screen sped up at the same time. That wasn't a coincidence. The sound was connected to me. The first word. A single word came from the recorder. Clear. Close. Like it came from inside my mouth. I'm here. I didn't say it. But the voice was mine. End of episode 3. The recording stopped. The screen went black. Then white text appeared. Now you remember me. And beneath it, a small note. But you haven't accepted it yet.